Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news coming Sunday afternoon for the Tennessee fans out of the recruiting trail. Four-star tight end Da'Saahn Brame flipping his commitment from the Oregon Ducks to this Tennessee program. Now, the Oregon Duck fans already know I am a massive fan of this kid as a tight end prospect in this 2025 cycle. And I think what should excite Tennessee fans a lot is not only are you getting one of my favorite tight ends in this 2025 cycle, I think more importantly, this is exactly what Josh Heupel has been looking for in this Tennessee offense, where you look at how Josh Heupel wants to operate on the offensive side of the football. We want to make defenses respect what we can do on the boundary. We want to spread defenses out. And you look at Tennessee over the last couple of years, you just kind of get the feeling that a tight end that can work the middle of the field, be that big fluid body, work in the middle, is kind of much needed in this Tennessee offense. And they haven't really had that kind of difference maker at the tight end position. I think Da'Saahn Brame can be that difference maker for Tennessee at 6'6", 235. This kid is the definition of a matchup nightmare. I mean, if you want to have a linebacker try to carry Da'Saahn Brame up seams, he's going to run right by him. If you want to put a safety or nickel on him, he's just too big and too physical to deal with. Not only is he a matchup nightmare, he's the ideal pass catcher for Tennessee to work the middle of the field. I think the last question you have is, can he get it done as an inline blocker? Now, you go to the high school film and say there's not a ton of examples of him getting used as an inline blocker. That's because he was used as the primary pass catching threat at the high school level. At 6'6", 235, I don't think many of us have question marks about what he can be developed as a blocker for this Tennessee offense, which, again, Tennessee is going to ask their tight ends to get it done in line in the blocking game. I think Da'Saahn Brame can do that as well. Fired up to get into the film. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and for everybody who's checking the boys out in the middle of summer, talking recruiting. We appreciate you guys more than you know. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into Da'Saahn Brame. I think it starts with just a production he had during his junior year. 46 catches for over 940 yards, 13 touchdowns, 20.5 yards per reception. This is a big play threat at the tight end position, and there's so many different ways that you can kind of ask Da'Saahn Brame to operate in this offense. One, he is very, very good at the contested catch point. So you talk about red zone situations where the throwing windows kind of get scrunched, and you have a guy in Da'Saahn Brame who can just go up and make plays with the football in the air. But I think more importantly, when you're talking about between the 20s, I think Da'Saahn Brame is a perfect fit in this Tennessee offense where if you're going to have to, if you're playing Tennessee on the offensive side of the football, spread your defense out, right? They're going to line up right to the boundary. That middle of the field is going to be largely vacant. I think that is a massive opportunity to kind of get Da'Saahn Brame working that middle of the field. Again, linebackers trying to carry this kid up the seam, they don't stand a chance at running with him. You want to put a safety or nickel back on him. He's just too big and physical. He's a matchup nightmare that can work the middle of the field. Really just what the doctor ordered for Tennessee in this offense. And you get into the film. The film is a blast to watch. I mean, one of the things that you really love is what he can do at the contested catch point, where you look at Tennessee last year, struggled a little bit in the red zone. When you have a target like Da'Saahn Brame, who you can just say, hey, we're going to go throw it up, ask you to make a play, and he's so good at the contested catch point. This is kind of how I envision Da'Saahn Brame getting used in this Tennessee offense, where you kind of look at this set very similar to what you're going to see with Tennessee. We're going to spread you out of the middle of the field, and you're going to see that middle of the field kind of be ripe for a guy like Da'Saahn Brame to work. You roll this play, they're going to try to have, I believe this is kind of an off-ball back, or try to follow Da'Saahn Brame up the seam. Not a chance. I mean, he's such a big body, big target to work the middle of the field. This is exactly how I think Da'Saahn Brame gets used in this Tennessee offense. You get some examples of him working in line, leaking him out again to the middle of the field. You got a linebacker trailing him. It's just not a chance. I mean, he is just too fast for linebackers to deal with and run with in the middle of the field. I think this is a perfect fit, and there's a lot of different ways you can get him involved as well. He is elite after the catch, whether it's making people miss, whether it's just kind of lowering his shoulder and just being a bear for defensive backs to bring down. You love these kind of tight ends, and they're really hard to find. There's a lot of tight ends that are just big and fast. There's not a ton of tight ends that are extremely fluid as pass catchers and route runners. Da'Saahn Brame is kind of one of those guys. That's what excites me most. Again, really, really good at the catch point. You could go through the whole 8 minutes of this film and just see all the different ways that Da'Saahn Brame can get incorporated in this Tennessee offense. Now, you take a look at Tennessee in 2025, just kind of flying under the radar. What stands out to me is Tennessee's just filling this roster up with blue chip guys, right? Obviously headlined by George McIntyre at the quarterback spot. We covered him in just a big, long body that has some really, really good arm talent. You kind of like to fit in the Josh Heupel system, but you start scrolling down. One thing that stands out, what Tennessee's doing along the line of scrimmage. And Douglas Utu, one of the most polished up offensive linemen that we see in the 2025 cycle, coming from Bishop Gorman. He could play tackle. He could play guard. He could probably play the center spot as well. Douglas Utu is going to be one of those guys that plays early for Tennessee. Marion Dye, Ethan Utley. And we talk about this a lot. And Tennessee's going to have good offense as long as Josh Heupel is running this Tennessee program. Where was Tennessee expected to kind of take that step, and where we're seeing them take that step in present day, what they've done along the line of scrimmage? I mean, had one of the best rushing attacks in the country last year in 2023. We expect them to have one of the better front sevens on the defensive side of the football in the 2024 season. You're seeing Josh Heupel and his ability to win for these elite guys in the front seven along the line of scrimmage on the recruiting trail. It's starting to pay dividends for this Tennessee team on the football field. And the longer Josh Heupel gets to stack that talent along the line of scrimmage on both sides, I think the better this Tennessee team gets. Again, we know they're going to have a really good offense. What Josh Heupel had to come in and do is say, if we're going to compete at the top of the SEC, we have to look like Georgia and Alabama along the line of scrimmage. You're starting to see Tennessee start to look like those programs along the line of scrimmage, and then just filling it up with blue chip talent. I mean, they don't have that premier top 50 national prospect, although I would argue that George McIntyre certainly could be that guy. But you start scrolling down and say a ton of blue chippers coming into this Tennessee program along the line of scrimmage. That's kind of the recipe for this Tennessee team. I think Tennessee fans have a lot to be excited about in terms of what Josh Heupel's doing on the recruiting trail. Last thing I want to talk about really quick, Lonzo Hayward. That was a massive commitment yesterday. We didn't get a chance to cover it. This kid is just a defensive chess piece in the secondary, right? At 6'1", 200 pounds, he is rocked up he's built going into his senior year of high school. A guy that could play that free safety spot, could play the box safety, if you will, could play that nickel role as well. I think that was a massive win for Tennessee on the recruiting trail as well. And again, the more and more you get to stack this blue chip talent as Josh Heupel gets these guys developed up, that's the recipe for Tennessee to continue to close the gap at the top end of this SEC conference. A lot of excitement for this Tennessee program on the recruiting trail. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.